Relationship management is the key to unlocking your destiny. During the series entitled After I Did, Pastor Wayne Powell Sr. explores the connection between the quality of our life experiences and our relationships with others.
All right, welcome, everybody, back for another session of Relationship Wednesday. This is our third session, just getting it going. And so, like I told you before, this was really God put upon my heart to really start this podcast to really get us some other content and dealing with relationships out there. And I really want to come from a biblical aspect because I just, as I listen to relationships in the podcast space, so many people talking from their life experiences, their situation, and that's okay. But I'm finding that because it's not based on the word as far as the structure, then, I see that a lot of people are not processing how to deal with their hurts and situations, right? And we're living in a day where our ideas about relationships are way out of whack. So that's why we want to make sure that, I just want to come and bring another aspect to it so that we can begin to have some better tools to do relationships. And so that's what it's all about. So anyway, and so I guess to recap a little bit on that, just to let you know that right now I'm just opening up a little bit of teaching just to lay the foundation, but we will transition and start doing some interviews, and we'll have conversational sessions at times. And then for those who are connected to the church, you know that Minister Rita, she'll be taking your questions, and she'll have a platform to take the questions so we can sometimes answer your questions as well. So we want to be able to do all those type of things to be able to try to help give you some biblical perspective on relationships. All right. So I just want to just pick up a little bit and piggyback a little bit what I talked about last time. And really today, I really want to talk a little bit about codependent relationships and why are we codependent? Because again, I find that one of the reasons why a lot of relationships are not working out is because we take a good thing but use it for the wrong purpose. And because we taking a good thing and using it for the wrong purpose, we end up now abusing the thing that could be great, and it's not, and it don't be a blessing because we misuse it. So of course for me, I'm always use scripture because I always believe that God created us. He's the one that designed relationships, and so his the word is just not. And I would like to say this: the Bible has religion in it, but it's not a book of religion. It's a book of a way of life. It's a book about teaching about business, relationships, family, how to just grow as an individual. It has so many different aspects to it for us to be able to thrive and live in our life. So I'm going to go back to the book of beginnings, which is Genesis, in Genesis chapter 1. And so one thing for those who believe in it is that Genesis is the only book that was written because God told Moses exactly what happened, because nobody else was there at the time when Moses wrote the book of Genesis. So, because, Exodus all the way through, Moses was able to share his experience from that. But the book of Genesis, nobody experienced. So basically saying, this came right from God, like he decided to tell us his side of the story about how creation and everything came to be. So I would think that this would be so vitally important, because he could have just said, I created the heavens and the earth, and then that's be it. But he goes into some descriptive details about how man was created, what happened, what we were created for, all these type of things. So God has given us. So Genesis is really God's version, and it's not distorted through any man's point of view. This is God's side of, this is how everything started from the book of Genesis, going into it. So yeah, that's why I think that this is definitely really good to listen to. So now, this is what I'm going to talk about, where it says when God created Adam and Eve, and then it says, verse 18, this is Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. The Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Out of the ground, the Lord formed every beast of the field and every bird, and never brought them to Adam to see what they called them, and whatever Adam called every living creature, that it was named, and the names of all birds of the air and every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper comparable to him. So the Lord caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in his place. And then the rib, which the Lord God had taken from him, made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And God said, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, she shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. So one thing I want you to see here, it says, it is not good for man to be alone. So what does that mean? God wired us for relationships. So meaning that we thrive for it, we drive for it, we need for it. So, and now a lot of times people may ask the question, why is sex such a big thing? Why is it so powerful? Like what is the thing about it? Is that it's because you remember that Adam and Eve were one at one point in time, and then God brought Eve out from Adam, put a cause of the deep sleep. So you have to understand that is the spiritual expression of man and woman coming back together to be as one. So therefore you understand that we're always pulling for that spiritual pull. And because it's not, yes, our bodies may have impulses and do what they want to do, but we have to understand that why do we want that so much? Because and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit about today, is that sometimes we need to understand that what I'm looking for physically, I'm really reaching for a spiritual need through a physical act. And so understanding that, and what men are wanting out of that is different than what women want out of it, but ultimately it's still coming from a spiritual need. It's just that we don't understand it because it's on the subconscious level, but all thing we know is the impulses and what we feel in our flesh. But not realizing that there are things that we want out of it, because again, usually because like I need guys, we are, we like to, feel respected. We want to feel good, like a woman does it, for the emotion, the understanding, so in other words, like with the woman, it's more about, I want your mind thinking about me. Like I want your mind on somebody else. Like in other words, it's not about that. It's just about, that's how the emotional needs and different things that you take away from it. So understanding these things. And so I want to make sure we stay on top of why we're dealing with codependency, but I have to go back to the beginning of where it started, so that way we can have some context on why we're handling things the way we're handling them today. All right. So it says it should not be good for man to be alone. So understanding, my pastor, he broke it down where all one, but alone also means where we need connections to get our job accomplished on whatever level. So for example, if we want a family, you need, it has to be a male and a female to come together to create a family. You can't do it by yourself, right? So we have to understand that in that thought process, we realize that right there, it gives us a need for relationships, and relationships drive everything. You ever watch a movie and where they don't just play out, but the more we get into the characters and the more we get into how they're feeling and what's going on with them, and they always share a backstory and all of that. Why? They're trying to get us to relate to the character. They're trying to, so in other words, and if you can't relate to the character, you can't buy into what that, it's like the movie's not as exciting. But if I can buy into the character, why share the backstory? Why share all these things? Why? Why share all those other things? Because even in movies, we're looking for a relationship. And you always notice they was even talk about how, the superhero may go through bad things, but you always find, not every case, but always find some type of love interest along the way, or a team member or somebody where they're working with some type of partner to get things together, because it's expression of us needing relationships. And so now we realize that relationships are so vital. And when we don't have it, it happens. I even talked about, I forgot, it's been a long time since I heard this, but they were talking about how babies, if they are born and nobody touches it, the baby could die. Just with no touch, no affection, nothing, the baby could die. Because it's just even in that, just showing that we need it. So now, if that's a drive and it's going to motivate us to how we connect and what we want to do, then now we need to understand how to navigate those things. Because again, because that's, and like I shared with you before, but because relationships is connected to our purpose and the big picture of why we're here, which means it's going to be a lot of warfare and a lot of drama and a lot of sometimes negative things that happen around our relationships. Why? Because the devil wants to derail us from good relationships by allowing us to go through things that are hurtful, where you may have came up in a broken family where the parents wasn't there, or the abusive parent, or whatever it may be. And so all these things begin to shape our idea of relationships. And so now I'm trying to navigate relationships as an adult when I'm going through all of these hurtful experiences, and these become my realities. So I'm trying to navigate where I need relationships to function, but at the same time, I'm growing up in all of these distorted versions of how I'm processing relationships. And that's what makes this thing so really interesting, when we all need it, because when God says it's not good for man to be alone, it put an instinctive drive for us to connect. But then we come up in this life we're here. Like today, we grew up in blended families where you have, for whatever reason or another, we grew up in a world where you have a lot of step parents and this and that, so on and so forth. So people from other relationships, and they come together, try to make blended families work. So that just says, that's our new dynamic. And so now when we're talking about the Bible and how God wants the families to be blessed, but then now, the biblical model has always been the father and the mother from the house, out of there, and grow up in the same home as the same father and mother. But we don't live in that reality. How do you navigate that? Like, how do you even talk about, when, again, clearly we want relationships because we're like, even though I'm not with you no more, I still want to hook up with somebody else. Since I want to do life together. I want to share, because again, it's not so. And for example, when you're successful, a lot of times there are certain places where there is loneliness when you're going higher and doing certain things of success. But one of the main reasons why people get married is because they want to have somebody they can do life together with. So in other words, not only am I being successful, I have somebody I can share my life with. In other words, when I'm having a good day, I have somebody I can talk to. When I'm having a bad day, I have somebody I can talk to. You know what I mean? Where you just have that support and love for one another. So, and that's that drive. So they're saying this, just no matter what bad go through, we still always try to find a way to connect, because that drive is there. And so when you understand that drive is there, then a lot of times I think, and just from my understanding, is that if I'm going to have to find a way to connect, why don't I try to do it and figure out the biblical way on how to work through my hurts and my struggles and my problems, and be able to now navigate and moving forward, than me trying to form my own philosophies from my hurts and from my circumstances, from my situations, to try to make this thing work. And so one thing, and I love about this also, what he said, here's something I want you to see. You notice what happened with Adam versus Eve. It says that when Adam woke up, God woke Adam up to a job. A lot of times that's why men sometimes can get depressed when they lose their job. That's in general principle. We know today this is a different world we live in. But when Eve woke up, she woke up to a relationship. Meaning that most women, when they connect with somebody, they can be sad when they lose a friend, or lose a close friend, or a relationship with somebody like that, really. And again, all of it tags, we're just talking about on the scale like this. A woman losing a relationship with a close friend, or a close parent, or somebody, can a lot of times hit harder, because the way what Eve woke up to, when men, we woke up to a job, which means that we like to provide, we like to take care of things, we like to do certain things by nature. And if a lot of times, if we're not doing those things, then sometimes we can have a tendency to be depressed because of those things. So don't put it as a one size fits all what I'm saying. I'm just basically saying, in general principle, how we're wired at our core, as far as just the general nature of men. Like, for example, like Paul, we're going to talk about there in marriage. Paul never said, wives, love your husbands. He said, husband, love your wife. And then he just specifically said, wives, respect your husbands. So, because that's going to be our fight based on how we're wired. So understanding that he's not saying that this is going to be something easy, because he's saying the thing that you got to do is not going to come easy. So understanding that he's saying, wives, trust in the vision that God has given your man. You got to trust that, which is going to be a fight for women. But then the husband, it's love your wife, learn to understand, learn to work with her, learn to attentive to her needs and understand how that works. And because, men, we like to get straight to the point. Don't go around like Michelle, my wife, she likes to come home and when she's going through stuff, she just likes to vent and just talk. And I'm like, what's the point? I just wanted you to hear what I had to say. Oh, that's really, in my mind, I'm like, all right, let's just get to the point here. What can we do? Because again, but once I realized that it's not about that, it's really more about, listening, being attentive to her needs. And that's all she wanted. She just wants somebody to be able to hear out all that type of thing, so on and so forth. I'm just saying how we're wired and how we're built. That's what I'm saying. And so when you begin to understand that these needs begin to create the way we deal with one another, that's what I'm saying to you. So in other words, that's why I share these basic core needs. Like once you go back to the beginning and show how once we wanted something, we need these things. So then therefore, then when and like I've done a lot of offer guidance to people who in relationships, and usually they may not say my wife isn't respecting me, but it'll come out in some form or fashion, or the wife could be like, he's not, taking care of things, this and that, whatever. In other words, she's basically saying you're not being attentive to my needs. So I just want you to realize, this is like the core root of where it's coming from. And so as we're working through these practical issues, these unseen things that was a natural pull are things that create our problems and our point of tensions in our relationships. And so that's one thing I want you to see. So now I want to go over here to Ephesians chapter 3. Ephesians chapter 3. And this is Ephesians chapter 3, verse 14. For this reason, I bow my knee to the Father, of whom our Lord Jesus Christ, whom the whole family in heaven and earth is named, that he would grant you according to the riches of his glory to be strengthened with might through his spirit in the inner man, that Christ may dwell in your hearts, by faith, that you being rooted and grounded in love may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width, length, and depth, and height, and to know the love of Christ which passes knowledge, you may be filled with all the fullness of God. So I want to touch on this point first. He says that Christ may dwell in your hearts by faith, being rooted and grounded in love. So always think of a plan being rooted and grounded in love. So it means that I got to get my love and my sense of knowing that I'm loved from God in order to look what it says, that I may be able to comprehend with all the saints the width, length, and depth and height. Well, it's because understanding that relationships are complicated. And he's basically saying is that if you do not get your love from the right place, you will mismanage all your relationships in one way or form or another that you deal with. So if I'm not rooted and grounded in love and knowing that I'm loved, I'll mismanage my marriage. I'll mismanage my relationship with my friends. I'll mismanage relationships on my job with my people, my boss. I'll mismanage it with my co-workers, all of those type of things. He's basically saying is that the more I know I'm loved, the more I will be able to better manage and navigate the relationships. And so now I want to go back to Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3. And this is, I want you to catch this. And I shared this last time, but I really want to make sure you understand what I'm saying about rooted and grounded in love here. It says, now, this is when they ate from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so I want you to, so I'm not going to read the whole process, but I just want you to see verse 7, after they ate the fruit. Then the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves and made themselves coverings. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord among the trees. So once they ate, which means that they got disconnected. They disconnected themselves from God. And it says their perceptions and how they related to God changed. I just want you to see that. How once they got disconnected from God, because the eyes are open means shows that once was connected, once they got disconnected, how they related to God changed. That because that's the initial relationship. Remember, it had to be rooted and grounded in love. So once they disconnected from their source and that relationship changed, and look what happened. Because God even said, now he says that your husband will be Lord over you. So what happened? Now the thing that was supposed to come easy will now be a fight. He said, now you submitting to your husband is going to be a struggle for you. It wasn't before, but once you disconnected from being rooted and grounded in love, now this is going to be a fight. And so I want you to understand that once we disconnected from God, our whole focus shifted on relationships. Like it changed everything. And then once that changed, then the way I relate to other people changed. The way they related to everything, all the relationships changed. And then it said, when God came to talk to them in the cool of the day, they hid themselves. What happened to your confidence? Why are you hiding? Like what changed up? And then God said, who told you you was naked? So understanding that God said, I didn't change. But because you did something to disconnect, now you changed. Your whole perception changed. The way we're relating to each other. So in other words, he couldn't even come and talk to him in the cool of the day and have a conversation. Why did God create man? Notice that he created for relationship. He said, because God would come and talk to Adam and Eve in the cool of the day. They would have fellowship. That damaged the fellowship. In other words, now I created us for relationship to have conversation and walk together and talk together and be able to. And why did God do it? By free choice. Why did God say, well, why we put the tree in the garden if you knew? I'm going to tell you something. You do not know if somebody loves you until they have a choice. For example, how do you even know that woman that you like? Say, if I'm a man and I'm choosing a woman, if you're the only woman on this earth, I don't know you're special. How would you know? What makes you special? I chose you in light of everybody else. That's why. But a lot of times we miss that. We think, God said is that somebody loves you because they chose to, not because they were forced to. So God came and said, I want to create a people like myself that I can fellowship with and have conversation and talk to in the cool of the day. And once that shifted and once that changed, everything changed. And I just want you to see that, how everything started. Now you can start seeing the first struggle, the first fight. And then it says, let's keep reading. It says, I just want you to show you the difference. And so let's keep reading. Verse 10. So I heard your voice in the garden. Well, let's verse 9. Make sure you let me sure I can go back. Okay, so let's start at verse 7. Read down. Then the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked, and sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord among the trees of the garden. And the Lord called to Adam and said, where are you? He said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, who told you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you that you should not eat? And the man said, the woman who you gave to be with me came out of the tree, and I ate. See, that's where the first Mitch was created. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. In other words, this was where men, we have to be able to, we're supposed to take accountability. In other words, because the relationship changed, what happened? He started blaming everybody else for his decision. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I mean by you really, you pretty much took the role of, it's there for everybody. See, that's where, because relationship changed, what happened? Now I am at this place of, trying to be this and that. So I have to hit the pause button here. Because I got 1 minute left on my time. And so I just want to say is, I feel like we're in something good. So I'm going to hit the pause button here and stay tuned for next week. And then we're going to pick up and conclude this part of codependent relationships next week.
Thank you for joining Pastor Wayne Powell Sr. for this edition of Relationship Wednesday. We hope you enjoyed this episode of After I Did. Let's keep the conversation going by leaving your questions and comments in the chat. We also invite you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you are reminded to join us next Wednesday as Pastor Wayne continues this discussion of After I Did.